So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Lunch and Learn from Together Network, which is sponsored by Dragon Co-working, inspired by JK Online and Clockwork Moggy. Just before we get going, I just wanted to say a big well done to Carl and Joe for the pub quiz all over the weekend and the drawful events and everything they did. I thought they were brilliant, so well done to you guys. And also to Carrie and Neil and Alicia, who are working really hard behind the scenes at Clockwork Moggy. So today, we've got an event about opportunity in times of adversity. And when we came up with this title, I thought, I know just the guy and his team that could talk about that. So I'd like to welcome our speaker, which is Dan, founder of and MD of Wonderful, a digital and creative agency specialising in building new brands and revitalising old ones. Based out of the quite new but very brilliant co-working space, the Wonder Hub down in Maidstone. So welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Roland. Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. Thank you for that lovely welcome as well. And yeah, hi all. Hope you're having a good start to the week, and whatever the week looks like nowadays. Is it Monday? Is it Tuesday? Who knows? It all sort of merges into one. And thanks, Roland, and the guys for asking us to share, just a few minutes on this topic. It was really funny when Roland asked me to do this. I said to him, we're literally doing this very same webinar that during this same week. So we've already got the content, and what we want to do is take you through a few examples and a few bits of research actually that has come out of previous recessions, previous epidemics. Now the reality is we haven't had a pandemic like this before, so it's kind of new territory. But we want to take you through some stats and some research, and then get into some practical. So give me 10 minutes. I'll take you through some stats. I'll be Stato for today, and then I've got James, who's our head of digital, and I've got Philip, who's our creative director, also on the panel with me. And then we'll go through some of the practical takeaways together. And the key thing is we want Q&A. We want to engage with you guys. Get some questions. We've got some questions from the previous webinar, which we'll go through with you. But any questions you've got, practical questions, practical things that you guys are going through, let us know. And hopefully between the three of us, at least one of us can answer those questions. So quick introduction. Roland's already done it. For those who don't know me, I'm Dan Mordab, Managing Director and Founder of Wonderful. Love helping businesses work through things. That's what I'm really passionate about, whether they're a startup, whether they're a global brand. The thing that I'm passionate about, and also all of us are passionate about, is helping companies to get things right, make things work, position their brands, or make their technology work, or get their digital going. So, this period for us is it's extremely difficult, as it is for everyone, but actually it really aligns with our passions. We want to help people make it work. So that's why we're doing this, and that's what we're all about. So yeah, Wonderful. If you don't know who we are, we're a digital creative agency, which means basically we deliver a lot of brand strategy, a lot of creative strategy, but primarily over digital channels. That's enough about us. Obviously, why now? We find ourselves in a tough season, but actually, taking a step back, we've been running a program called Scale or Fail for about a year now, where we've been helping companies to understand how best to scale. And that's culminated in a number of events, webinars. We've got a content hub. So if you go to scaleorfail.co.uk, you'll see our content hub. And we've been trying to educate and empower our audience for I said, as for a year already, So coming into this period, we sort of just want to continue doing what we're doing, which is helping to educate, equip, and give people the practical insight to know how to scale during this time. Although we've called this Survive or Thrive because it's more survive and thrive right now than scale or fail. We're hoping no one's failing, hoping we can scale, but actually surviving and thriving is really key right now. We've had some great event partners over the last year, which we don't go into now. So why now and what are we doing? So obviously the whole situation we find ourselves in has got a massive national, and global challenge, but it's also got a local challenge. And so, some of the things we're already seeing in the market is there's going to be shifts in investment activity, shifts in what people will invest in. Now, I think one of the key things is that people and clients and customers are still willing to invest. Those that can still will, but they're going to do it in a different way. They're going to consume and they're going to invest in a different way. So that's what we want to look into very quickly over the next few minutes. There's massive uncertainty right now, but I think one thing we know for sure, that the crisis will pass. And what we want to do is we want to help our clients and people we're connecting with and the communities we're connecting with to be the winners in this, to be those that take advantage of the opportunity and to be able to reshape or restructure whatever it is they need to do during this opportunity. So the next few slides are going to be very much research and data that we've taken from third parties to put some method in our madness, because at the moment there can be a real sense of panic, a real sense of uncertainty, but we have had recessions in the past, we have had economic recoveries in the past, and there is actually quite a lot of research into how people have come through it. So the first quote, that's a tip, we're marketing people, right? You've got to have quotes and stats. So this is from a source called Tony Hillier, who's got an amazing bit of research and amazing white paper called Successful Competitive Strategies for Recession and Recovery. Sounds very long and very grandiose, but actually some of the data that comes out of it is really interesting. So that, this is a really, really interesting sort of framework for us to work around. So it says crises can punish the dithering and reward the committed. Brands that get it right, maintaining or increasing marketing spend during crises, are able to capture up to 3 times more market share through a downturn and rebound faster and stronger when the good times return, which leads to lasting competitive gains. Now, obviously reading a statement like that can mean many things to many different people. But again, picking up some more practicals around that piece of research from Tony Hillier. So I want to encourage you guys, if you're listening on Facebook Live or you're taking notes anywhere, go and research this white paper. Go and look at the study. It's really, really interesting. We're just putting out some key highlights for you right now. So if you look at this chart we've got here, it's about percentage gain in market share in comparison to changes in your marketing spend. So you can look at the change between those that cut their market spend to those that maintain to those that increase. So without getting all too analytical about it, I've got a degree in economics, so I'm actually a little bit sad. I like these charts and I like these graphs, and they kind of get me going. But let's kind of make this practical for us. What it basically says is that if you will increase or at least maintain your spend and through this, your actual incremental increase in market share goes up. Now, in one level, you can think, well, isn't that obvious? But on another level, you can kind of, the initial mindset a lot of people take is to cut back and to go in their shells. But the losses you make by going back in your shell, as we'll see in the next slide, in comparison to the gain that you make by maintaining the increase in your revenue, is disproportionate. In other words, you make disproportionate gains by increasing your spend than you would if the marketplace was good. So actually, again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if you look at this chart here and look at what we put on this slide, it's from a different source. And actually this source is from 1979 to 2006. And it looks, so it's over a really big period of time, and it looks at market share growth versus share of voice. So I'll just let you just read what it says there, but it's really, really interesting that companies that cut investment by 50% when the market is tough for 1 year before returning to the normality, whatever the new normal looks like, can take up to 2 years to recover their lost share. So in other words, those that cut investment takes them up to 2 years to recover just to where they were at the beginning, let alone looking at increases. So those that increase exposure during a downturn, actually the stats show can gain up to 3 times more share. And that's share of market and share of voice. So there's 2 things there. Share of voice is obviously the increase in your brand awareness, your brand reputation, your content, your total share of voice within the industry. And share of market obviously is in the sales and obviously the share of customers you have within that market. So you look, those that increase exposure during downturn can gain up to 3 times more share of market and share of voice in the first 2 years of recovery. So please take down that source, because it's really super interesting to really study that. Now, this might be relevant for your own business. This might be relevant for clients that you're working with, but it's a really interesting piece of analysis about how companies come out of this period. And we want to see, people we're talking to come out of this period with an increased share of market, an increased share of voice. So the question is, how do we do that? So one of the last case studies we're going to go into before we get into the practicals is looking at what happened in the SARS epidemic, which wasn't a global pandemic. It was an epidemic largely confined to China. But what it did is this became a tipping point for mass internet adoption in China 18 years ago, where people were forced to look at mobile and web. And what it actually did is it forced a lot of B2B suppliers. If we look at the next slide, I'm going to go quite quickly because we've got a lot of content to go through and we want to keep it, really, really relevant to you guys. A lot of B2B suppliers adopted Alibaba as the e-commerce platform of choice. And what was really interesting is we know Alibaba now as a global consumer brand. We know it as just sort of the Amazon of China, or however you think of it. But actually, when it launched back then, it was largely a B2B platform. So if you look at what happened in 2002, 2003, Alibaba's B2B e-commerce business added 4,000 new members and 9,000 listings each day, which is a 3 to 5 times increase over the pre-SARS rate. So what happened in a nutshell was that many smaller B2B businesses repositioned and repurposed their products and made them relevant for an e-commerce platform and were listing products and services each day over Alibaba.com. And that became a huge route to market during the epidemic. Now, obviously, in 2020, we have so many more platforms in terms of digital, e-commerce, m-commerce, social platforms in order to connect with our potential audience or connect with our current customers. So back in 2002, obviously, it wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. Obviously, Alibaba's revenue itself grew. What was interesting is it built a whole economy around it. So, really, really interesting case study there about how B2B brands became almost became digital commerce overnight using Alibaba.com. So just a few things we can just learn very quickly from the past. This source here is from Ogilvy. They've written some great content around this. 5 quick things, then we're going to get into the practicals. Number one is these black swan events, as they're called. So the SARS, Ebola, COVID-19, they become real moments of truth for brands and marketers. And what that means, what a moment of truth is, what's your real purpose? What's your real values? What is your real proposition? Does it stand up in this moment of truth? Can you become a voice in this moment of truth, in this black swan event? Can your brand, can your business become a real voice in the industry, a real voice of values in the industry? But also equally, can we become agile and creative in this period of time? I think that's absolutely one of the key words this period of time is being agile. So can we repurpose our products and services? Is there a way in which we can deliver our business, online or, via, different platforms like this even? Is there a way in which we can be creative right now? We're used to win customers, doing these sort of methods. How can we win customers during this period? How can we be creative and agile in this period? And we'll come on to that in a minute. Second thing is there will be an after. What happens with an after? With a lot of our businesses, there's going to be pent up demand. People haven't stopped wanting to consume your product or service. It's just that the demand is pent up right now. So how are we preparing for that pent up demand afterwards? It's easy to panic. It's easy to sort of take a step back and say, right, it's all over, it's all finished. But there will be an after and there will be pent up demand. Number 3, but it'll be a different place. People are already talking about the new normal. And what comes out of this is that people's attitudes and behaviors has shifted. So there'll be some slightly new needs and new priorities, but also some new competitive opportunities. So one of the things we can do now is ask our customers, how are things shifting? How do they think it will shift in the future? What do they think the new normal will be? And how can our business respond to that new normal? Number 4, managing time horizons. So in other words, looking at short, medium and long-term changes. So what are the short-term changes our businesses need to make right now that can lead to medium-term growth and can lead to long-term change? We'll look at that a little bit in a minute. And number 5, before we get into the practicals, is there's the old adage, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So right now, and I'm sure you guys have done this, I don't want to patronize you, we're a couple of weeks into this already, but I'm sure, right now, preparation is absolutely vital. Having a business continuity plan right now, absolutely vital. So What does that mean in practical terms? Is knowing right now how best to communicate with your current customers and potential new customers, absolutely starter for 10, and then being able to build out a bit of a 101 business plan around that. Really simple stuff, but preparing right now is for the next month, for the next 3 months, and for the next 6 months is absolutely vital. I'm not sure many businesses are looking 6 months, more than 6 months in ahead, but 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month business plans, absolutely vital right now. So we've just got 3 really practical takeaways that we want to work with you guys on. Then we're going to open up for Q&A. So I think for the first takeaway, I think Phil is going to take over. So Philip, over to you.
Hello,
talk us about making your brand matter.
Okay, so obviously brand is something we're all very familiar with, and is seen often by clients as a bit of a luxury. So now they find themselves in a different situation where all of a sudden the market's changed. They can no longer just talk about products because half these businesses, no one wants their products at the moment. And they're wondering, what to do and sort of how to engage their customers or what to do for the next few months. So brand really is an important subject right now. So we're looking at this, and like Dan was saying, we need to look at this in 3 on 3 time horizons: the immediate term, which is kind of what's happening now, the needs now; at the medium term, which is that how, as we start to work out of this period, what does how can we make sure we're on that 3 times growth curve? And then the long term, how do we prepare for the new normal? Now, for brands and businesses, because what is a brand? Brand is really the perception that our customers or our stakeholders have of what we're about. And that perception is influenced by the things we do, the actions we take, the way we present ourselves, all those kind of things. So don't think in here we're talking about just, in terms of brand, in terms of how we present ourselves, because it's not that at all. Actually, it's developing a perception and understanding with your customers as to what you are and why they should engage with you. So a lot of businesses now are thinking, well, what do we do during this time? Well, brands have been looking for purpose for a long time now. They've been saying, well, how can we be relevant? How can we be more than just a service provider? Well, now, guys, is the time that the rubber hits the road. Now is the time where there is more opportunity to show your value to the world than any other. The world is in crisis. Crisis creates opportunity. It creates need. It creates disruption. So now is the time to step up and say, well, this is the time we dreamt about. Well, this is the time in terms of we were made for this time. This is the time we can grab hold of this and show people what we're all about. Now, that is great if you're a brand that is forward-thinking, innovative. That if you're a brand that is always thought of, how can we bring value to the world? If you're a brand that has been sort of digging in and entrenched for the last few years, this is terrifying, because all of a sudden everything's disrupted and you've got to think again. So then it comes down to, well, how do we explain our value to the world, especially in this new world, which is not necessarily defined by the services or products that we had before? And so brand proposition is a key component to that, encapsulating for our customers what it is that we how we add value to our interactions, what we do for them. And we, just in a very practical way, the simplest way to think about brand proposition, and if it's a bit of a branding buzzword, a bit of jargon, but the simplest way to think of brand proposition is our customers and us. Now, we think about our customers, we think about their needs, their motivations, what they're looking for, what their behaviors are, and understanding who they are. That's the one component. And on the us side of it, we have to think about our USPs, how we add value, what we're great at, what we love, our values, the things that drive us. Then what we do is we take those two things and we draw a line between needs and our value, between motivations and our personality. So we start to describe ourselves in terms of how we're bringing value to our customers. Rather than just talking about ourselves all the time, we start talking about a mixture of what we do that's great, that solves a problem for our customers. So just skipping on to the next slide there, James, thank you. So some examples here of some very short, immediate term solutions. So, you know, I love what Brewdog have done here, because they have repurposed their business. I mean, obviously they're still selling beer as well, so you could argue there's a sort of fairly cynical PR stunt here, but you know, the reality is they are making themselves fit for purpose for the needs that are out there right now. But they have not done it. They've done it in the way that their brand expresses itself. You know, this is not just any old hand sanitizer. This is the punkiest, most out there kind of, disrupting the system kind of hand sanitizer. I love the, Brewgel punk sanitizer, postmodern classic. I love the fact they're like literally claiming this thing that they've done as like just this, to fill a need now, but in their own way and their own personality. And that's a critical thing. How do we bring value right now? How do we answer the problems right now? Not how is someone else doing it? How do we do it in our own tone, in our own way? And there's a couple of other examples. Obviously, Zara, providing the kind of clothing for the scrubs and all that sort of stuff, very practical solution. And Dyson, obviously, are great innovators anyway, so this is like business as usual for them. It's just someone's given them a great brief to work to. So again, Dyson are doing it in their own way. So that immediate term, they're doing it out of their own sort of brand assets already. And then William Hill, rather cynically, have tried to jump on this, offering international soccer action, which turns out to not be that at all. So there's almost like a sense of desperation of that. What are we going to do? Let's try and make something work. Whereas obviously you can see with these other guys, they're actually really trying to add value to this as well. So these guys, when they come out on the medium term of this, when we're getting back to business as usual, I'm going to know that Brewdog are about something. I'm going to know they're about actually reacting quickly. They're about reacting in a certain way. And their brand is just embedded in my mind. So they are going to be on the up. In the new normal, these guys are going to be the brands that we think of as having authenticity and value and substance to them. And, you cannot buy that stuff. You cannot buy that. All you can do is demonstrate it. So now is the opportunity to really show that. Right, jumping on then to James, adjusting channels and content mix.
James, because I'm hello, can you hear me? So because I am presenting. The practical takeaway from this, and there's been various bits of talk on all of this, is around adjusting your channels and content mix. So now's the time to do that whole being agile thing, and it's quite clear that there's various ways that we can achieve that. Some of those have been touched on already, but the key thing really, being where people are now, and I'll come on to some stats around this, but supporting what customers and potential customers are doing right now, recognizing those changes, and doing that through a handful of key ways: connecting, engaging, informing, teaching, entertaining, supporting and providing. And there's lots of examples of that around right now. Being brave and being committed. We've already established that brands which have succeeded by maintaining or investing more in their marketing during similar testing times in the past have won out. So not going back into your shell, making sure that you are still communicating with your customers. Now that might be in a new tone of voice, it might be with new messaging, as Phil's just discussed in the brand piece. But being brave and being committed during these testing times is important, no matter what your size of business. And adjusting your channel mix, so putting effort into the channels which are being engaged with the most, serving your customers in new ways through new mediums, being relevant not just in the now but for the future landscape. So that's thinking short-term, medium and long-term, with these channel tweaks that you start to make with your digital marketing in particular. Now that the obvious move where possible is online. So, that's not just taking your bricks and mortar store if you're B2C online. It's about taking how you communicate with your customers online. It's about building your audience online. It's about building and engaging with a community through online means. You know, we can't do that face to face right now. We can't get in front of people and handshake or even elbow bump now. So it's really important that we utilize your website, social channels, email marketing, and even PPC. You know, they can all be utilized to help retain custom and place yourself front of mind in the longer term as well. Those channels can all be used in the short, mid, and long term, as we've discussed. That impacts existing online businesses as well. It's not just about taking an offline business online. I've seen some great examples of that in this group, you know, on Facebook, from PTs, from motivational coaches, from business coaches, business mentors, accounting. Lots of businesses that traditionally are done perhaps offline, face to face in meetings, are now being bought online, which is great. And there's some real evidence that this is vital, and that this is the way that people's behaviours are changing. We've mentioned behavioural change before. So, you know, this outbreak, much like previous outbreaks before with the SARS epidemic influencing how people moved online in a B2B sense with Alibaba, this outbreak has nudged and forced many consumers to try something they've never done before, which has created some real opportunity for some new sectors, you know, leveraging this behaviour for your business's gains, you know, with the right sentiment, and not exploiting it, but leveraging this behavioural change to help your business survive through this period and arguably thrive, is really an opportunity. So, you know, from the graph on the right here, which is a great study by Kantar, which is specifically about coronavirus, 84% of people have tried at least one new service for the first time. You can see on the graph there, the highest is online medical consultancy. Let's face it, we're in a time of quite a lot of fear right now, and people are going to be using services like that because they can't go to their doctors. They're going to be using more of the online services. That's an obvious, but you know, online education has seen 33% first time usage. Remote working software and app, you know, we're presenting on Zoom and Facebook Live right now. I have not been out of a Google Hangout since 2013, it feels like right now, because, you know, we're changing the way we communicate, and we're still managing to work remotely. And people paying for digital entertainment services, you know, people are now stuck at home. We've seen launches of Disney Plus, which, you know, their timing is impeccable, unfortunately. But we've seen some really interesting tweaks in some of the digital entertainment services as well, like the likes of Netflix have now kind of upped the ante on the kind of shared viewing and this, you know, socializing element. And, you know, 26% of first timers using digital entertainment services. Then we've got things like live stream apps, social e-commerce, buying home fitness equipment, online banking, etc. So the evidence for digitizing your offering is pretty prevalent. And obviously, you know, as a digital agency, you know, our thoughts are in that, but this kind of evidence does show that moving things online where possible is really important. Now, adjusting your channels and content mix, you know, I've got more evidence here. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet now on this, but the stats, you know, really do paint that picture. Virgin Media just reported that download traffic is up 90% in the last 2 weeks, which is insane. A 70% increase in time spent on Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. That stats come straight out of Facebook. New video calling app, some of you guys might have used, House Party, 2 million downloads in just 1 week. Insane numbers. And Nielsen, another big market research group, stated video streaming services are set to increase by at least 60% over the coming weeks. Now, the big stat here really is that digital marketing growth that was expected to take 5 years may now just take just 5 months. So the graph on the right there is from Statista. There's a report you can read about this, but the predicted digital marketing spend as a percentage of total ad spend worldwide is going to increase dramatically, obviously, you know, in the next 5 months. to the level that could have potentially taken 5 years. And various platforms, some of the big boys have added and adapted and been agile to add new features or push forward new features or highlight and take advantage of existing features during this time. So Instagram has added a new co-watching feature. YouTube have updated and expanding their learning platform, and location app Zenly have done a tie-in with Snapchat to create a leaderboard for people staying at home. So Snapchat, for those of you who don't know, have a feature where there's a map where you can see where your friends are. It's a little bit stalky, but it's kind of fun. And they've used the algorithm, the API from that, to pull data into a leaderboard to demonstrate just how long people are taking time at home. And this promotes, this is a real positioning piece in terms of showing that they are socially aware, and they are helping the fight for social distancing and the whole stay at home message, which is really important right now. I believe Dan is going to pick back up.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, James. Hi, all. Yeah, just very quickly then, just to finish off before we get to the Q&As. Hopefully you guys have got some good humdinger of questions for James and Philip to answer. I think, one of the mindsets behind all of this is about being present, having a plan, adapting, being agile, all the things we've said, but also helping to lead what the change landscape looks like for you as a business leader, as someone who works in a company. And there's so many different ways in which that can look. But I'm not going to go through each of these points because they're all, like sort of business transformation points in their own right. But just as a quick highlight and a quick practical takeaway, number one is look at your brand positioning and your proposition right now. Are you scratching where it itches, as Philip said, right now? Is your business being a voice in its relevant marketplace right now? And how can you be that voice? How can you have a relevant brand proposition to where your customers are right now? Number one. Number two is that values transformation. So really, having purposeful engagement with your audience, being able to look at your CRM and your email database and say, how can I add value to that? How can I be purposeful in my communication with them right now? Something that I can do right now as a business to be part of that. Looking at the customer experience. So again, customer experience is a massive topic in itself, but how are my customers experiencing my brand in this current state of play that we find ourselves in? And that experience is not only in the sales cycle, but that's in the CRM, in a content cycle, in the how I work my CRM, how I work my database, how my daily communication goes with my customers. How is that experience changing and transforming to be something that adds value to them, not only right now, but also in the future as we move to the changed landscape or the new normal, as people say. And ultimately, there's a lot of conversation around, as James showed with the statistics on the previous slide, that whole digital transformation piece. Whole industries are going to evolve through this and going to adapt and change through this. Obviously, businesses that are on a larger scale will have to adapt through this process. But for all of our businesses, however niche or size of business we are, we can all look at opportunities to use technology and digital innovation to evolve our business during this time. So that's as simple as getting a CRM in place, making sure that our data is segmented properly, and we're sending out relevant communication in a relevant way to a relevant audience, something that might seem 101 for many of us. But you know what? The amount of companies we go into and say, is your CRM sorted? Are you doing the basics well? And actually they're not. So use this time period to get that, to get that in place. How do we do that? Engage with your stakeholders, engage with your customers, your staff, family and friends. Ask them, talk to them, and say, what is it you want to see? What matters to you right now? And some of those changes might be small, and some of those changes might be more fundamental. But now is the time to really set our business up so that when the after comes, we're surviving and thriving and scaling, not failing. So I think that's all I want to say on that. As I said, it's a massive topic. We want to get to some Q&As. I see that there's a couple have just come through here on the chat. Roberto, thanks for the question. This is definitely A question for James. I'm not just throwing him the hospital pass, but I might be a little bit.
Can I just, Dan, can I just jump? I've got a response to this question, actually, just before James jumps in.
Okay, there we go.
Go on.
So, Roberto, I think, there's no simple, straight answer to these things. We're all kind of trying to use the information we have to hand to make decisions. But I think one important question we have to ask ourselves at this point is, not should we do it, but that obviously is one of the questions we need to ask, but the other question should be, how would we feel when our competitors have done it? That is an important part of answering this question. Not just is the opportunity, well, the opportunity is definitely there to fully digitize your product, and obviously to split it out, diversify into some trading products in that way. But the question really is like, okay, we can go for it, but if we don't go for it, how will we feel in 6, 12 months' time when our competitors have gone for it and they're in that position? Because I think that would probably answer that question for you. Sorry, James, you can probably answer some questions on that.
No, I think I can see the question if it's the one on the Facebook feed there from Roberto. So yeah, I mean, echoing what you've just said there, Phil, that's absolutely right. I'd also argue that right now, if you are a Facebook and Instagram lead gen agency, effectively, you've got a lot of the core competencies required to actually capitalize on pretty much everything we've just said. Now, you need to decide, obviously, around how you communicate that message, launch that new product, etc. But the reports that we went through earlier on in this, which I do highly recommend reading, because we've only picked out some headline stats, but there are some interesting things in there around new product launch, diversification in times like this. And if your core competence set is within digital marketing in any way, Facebook, Instagram, being part of your business by the looks of your question, then as Phil said, this is perhaps a time of opportunity, and the question really is, what if we didn't do it? So obviously it requires a bit of decision making on your part, and actually ensuring that, provided you're still staying true to the brand proposition and that your product is fulfilling a need in this time, which it sounds like is a product that you were going to develop anyway, and then perhaps the here and now is an opportunity rather than a time of adversity.
Yeah, and I think if and when you do decide to look at the online proposition, one of the key things to any developing any new product proposition or new product itself is test the market. So be able to put a course together and test the market with a certain audience. Get your first, give it away to your first 5 customers or whatever it might be. Discount it, test the market, get some feedback, see how it works. Is it create an MVP, create a minimum viable product, get into the market, test the market with a closed group. Get some feedback, get some response from that, and then widen it out into a full market ready product. Because it could be something in the long term that works alongside your original business plan, or it could end up becoming your business plan. Depends on how it's received. And you want 100 clients in 2 years, you may have 100 clients in 3 months if this product, because people are consuming online. Your audience, your potential customers are sitting at home right now looking for content such as this. So I think it's a case of being able to get an MVP ready if you choose to do this. Like Phil said, if you don't choose to do this, are you going to miss out? Only you can answer that question. But if you do it, create the MVP, test the product, test the audience, rework it, tweak it, modify it, adapt it, and evolve it into something that's a market ready product, and then drive sales. There's several stages, and I'm giving you a very, very quick overview here. There's several stages in which you can very simply, quickly, and cost effectively get a new product to market. So hopefully this answered your question, but I think, you need to know whether you're going to do it first. If you are going to do it, how you're going to do it. And there's simple ways in which you can do that. But, connect with us on Facebook afterwards, or drop us an email, and we'll help you, guide you through that process in a bit more detail, if applicable. Hopefully that's answered the question, Roberto.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks very much for that, Dan. Yeah, Roberto is one of the co-workers down at Dragon, and he certainly gets a value out of his membership. I think he'd sleep there if I let him. He's there so much. He's so dedicated.
Roberto,
to his work.
You have to get out of the desk. You can't sleep under the desk.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I liked the Brewdog. Brewdog's one of my favourite brands ever. And when I saw them doing that hand sanitizer, I just thought that is absolutely brilliant what they're doing there. They're helping people out. Okay, they're jumping on the bandwagon a little bit, but they're doing something which we all need, which the NHS needs. And I think you can see that all over, different examples of different brands that are going to come out of this very well, and other ones that are really not going to come out of it very well. Ones that are profiteering, that have really tried to actually just make money out of it rather than trying to help people. And all those brands out there, big and small, from literally down the corner shop where they're offering free delivery to our RAPs, to the big brands, the ones that help people out at this time of need are the ones that are going to be remembered and the ones that are going to succeed. And vice versa, those ones that are profiteering are the ones that are going to fail in the future, that we're all going to remember for a long, long time. So I haven't got any other extra questions coming, guys. So I think guys had a couple of other questions you were going to...
Yeah, these are some questions that we got from, we did a little survey before we did the first webinar to some of our database, and actually said, what are some of the questions that you guys would have? And then there's some questions from a previous webinar that we did as well. There's some quite, we've kind of rephrased them in a sort of marketing context, but there's some quite big ones here. So I don't know if we want to just pick off one or two ones that maybe we haven't answered. I'm just reading them as we talk now. Have you got any, James or Phil? Have you got any ones there that we haven't answered that you think we could answer?
I mean, I think Phil, I'm going to throw one to Phil actually on this one, because it does relate to what Roland was just saying around, the brands. The brands right now are treading quite a fine line in terms of taking an opportunity from this adversity and exploiting it. And I think a lot of that does come down to what Phil was saying earlier around brands. How do, the question in the middle there at the top, how do we promote our business without being perceived as taking advantage of the situation? And I think Phil's probably got some answers on that one. I think it's quite a classic. It kind of relates to what Roland was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a fine line. You're right. And, I think this is tricky, probably trickier actually for the bigger guys than it is for smaller brands, because I think one of the other things that we're seeing a lot is, because look, we're all sat here on a webinar now. You can see, this is where I live behind me. Dan's in his front room there. And we're in a time now where we're engaging human to human, person to person, probably more so than we were 2 or 3 weeks ago. We all have, if we'd have done this 3 weeks ago, we'd have been in our, branded studio with like the wonderful stuff all over it, and you wouldn't have seen behind the screens or, behind the curtain, so to speak. But that's not the case now. We're all in this thing together. And I think brands are having to respond like that as well. So that human personality is a really important part of that. So I think, Brewdog have got away with just jumping on a bandwagon because they brought all their personality with them. And they've done it in like a cool way. This Brewdog's the kind of guy we want to be around, because he's not just done this thing, he's done it with a bit of style as well, and a bit of attitude. And I think that's a really important thing when we're working, certainly through these next few months, is remembering that that humanity in what we do. We're not going to, that kind of corporate veneer just kind of, that doesn't wash so much anymore. Of course, we need the professionalism. We need to make sure that we look like, we're proper businesses doing the right thing, but just presenting that corporate professional face I don't think is going to start winning you hearts and minds over the next few months. People want a human interaction. So any ways when you're thinking, well, what can we do right now? Don't think, this is what they're doing, but think about what we do. It's like brand proposition. What do we do really well that can help these people in a really valuable way? That is what we should be thinking as businesses and brands right now. That's what we're trying to think as an agency. We do this thing really well. We know about digital. We know about brand, and how to transform in this digital world. Well, how can we use that to really help and add value in a very open-handed way right now? So I think that's a really important part of walking this through.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that kind of ties into the fifth question that we had there around extending that brand proposition online, into services and content. It's kind of, which is one of the takeaways really from my side, from a digitizing your business point of view, in terms of, I mean, we're actually walking the walk and talking the talk right now on this. We've got a couple of clients where one client in particular, for example, as a case study, who traditionally do a lot of their biz dev through events, large scale events, where these events can take them upwards of kind of quarter of their yearly customer acquisition. Each of these events that they do throughout the year, they're not on anymore. There's no face-to-face events, certainly no gatherings of more than 2 people, let alone the thousands that they normally get through the door at these big trade shows. And so they've come to us proactively. They've understood this need to try and find a way of capitalizing on digital to try and at least sustain some of that interest in their product and that demand. So they're now looking at alternative digital opportunities for what this event would normally do to them, for them. And the thing that they've done there is strip that right back to their brand proposition. They're actually a software company. So on face value, they provide software, and they would be selling the software at this event. But it's not actually what they do. What they actually do is help their customers to grow their businesses through the use of the software. The software is just a vehicle for that. Their brand proposition is about delivering growth for their customers, their clients. So we can take that and digitize that. I won't go into the how at the moment, because we're actually working that through with them, and it's obviously it's a live case study. But we are digitizing that. That customer interaction, that customer engagement, that brand proposition for them. We're bringing that through content, amongst other things, to help maintain that part of their business, even though we're in testing times.
Yeah, I think the final thing I wanted to say, I think, because each of these questions can have a 10-minute answer to do it thoroughly. But one of the questions there is, how can we innovate to find new ways to deliver solutions and services in line with the new reality and new behaviours? Now, one of the things I want to just quickly cover off is the whole pricing strategy around things. Because in line, new solutions and new services equals new pricing models. So I think one of the key takeaways from this period we're in is, how can we be agile and flexible with our pricing models? Where we used to charge for a project fee up front, or we used to charge, on an invoicing basis on a quarterly basis. Can you break that down into smaller weekly, monthly chunks? Can you change contract terms that fits your new products or service? That means that it's more, that different customers can buy it. Can you flex price and see a premium? You have 3 service levels, for example, or there's so many different ways in which you can change pricing models to reflect your solutions and services in a time like this. And actually, you end up with multiple streams of income. So rather than we do this and we sell it one way, and this is all we do, and this is how we make money. Can you flex that? Can you end up with 3 streams, income streams from different levels of service or solutions that you can offer, or different ways or different types of content people can consume, or different types of services people can consume. So there's lots of different ways in which we can be flexible in our pricing structures as well in this season, to make sure that we're servicing our clients in a way that's relevant to them right now, but also that we're keeping the business moving, that we're surviving and thriving. So think about your pricing structure as well. That's absolutely key during this time. So it's a little bit of a shift from where we've been, but I wanted to add that in there because obviously at the end of the day, we want our businesses to survive and thrive, and not profiteer, as Roland was saying, by trying to rip people off or trying to do this fake kind of we care thing, but actually being able to deliver genuine value to our customers in a way in which they can afford and buy from us during this time period. So think about that. So I think that's it, Roland, in terms of questions for us right now. If there's any more topics or questions you want to run through, feel free to email me or connect with us online, or go through Roland and the Together Network. It's a brilliant network, and well done to Roland, Carl, Joe, and everyone else putting it together. I know there's a whole team of you, but really, really good, and thank you for having us on.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it. Just going back to Brewdog again. I don't know if any of you guys have read it. Have you read James Watt's book, Business for Punks?
No, I've heard about it. I haven't actually read it. Is it good?
It's a really good. It makes me chuckle as well because the
Oh,
way
really?
they went about building BrewDog, literally from 2 guys and a dog to a huge, great multinational company in a very short time, is quite gobsmacking. And it's yeah, it's a really, really good read. And it sort of goes. It is business for punks, so it's almost like an anti-business. He did everything pretty much. Well, some people would say wrong about building a business, but look where he is now.
Oh, amazing! Wouldn't it be cool to be able to do that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much, guys. And thank you for everybody that's been on Facebook with us today. We will be cutting this video. It will be on our YouTube channel as well, the Together Network. We've got another Lunch and Learn on Wednesday, and that's going to be with Paul Andrews. He's going to talk about the power of community at this sort of time. So, you know, what it means to bring everybody together. So I think that's going to be a really, really good Lunch and Learn. So that's Wednesday at 12 o'clock. But thanks so much to you guys. Thank you very much to Phil, James, and Dan from Wonderful. And if you haven't been down to Wonder Hub as well, yeah, get down there. It's a brilliant co-working space down in Maidstone.
Thanks,
Hopefully when it's all back open and running again, we'll come down and see you. But thanks so much, guys, and see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.